For a couple
So
of
she-
hours. Be okay?
she-
We have,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, she is. Oh, okay.
the whole,
But
we
like,
don't have as much.
yeah, it
as
feels
we
a little
see,
different, 4 hours a day.
But we probably have plenty of kids. that-
But now, most.
Go
What you want to look at it, they got it here.
Right.
No, I'm going
So-
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, she,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
her daycare's like cutting.
I couldn't
Well, if you
stay
both of us
after,
remember what the
so.
check maybe had a station, but Kevin voted no, he didn't.
Yeah, how far do you drive to that?
An hour. It's down in,
You know,
go to eat, yeah, some cities.
I think we've done the Stevie's.
So.
And isn't it a morning?
Any
Yeah.
non-controversial.
That's even, I mean, so I don't know how many videos on
Well,
the
we
board
start
can
at
go.
9:30. Well, it isn't that's exactly,
Did
I'm
somebody
sure that's
question?
exactly why I got targeted too, to
Right.
like they're having trouble getting people on the executive board because you
But now,
have
so
to be
she.
retired or,
she
So-
you know.
she
That's
might
not,
do
I mean,
it
so this
too,
is
she
the
may
thing,
be
so they know why people don't
Even
go.
that.
So why don't they just change the time of day?
I don't
We did it on consent last year.
Full time.
Because I was on it too, then my first year,
Hobbies only
and I
go
went
so
down there
far.
for the,
Maybe we should-
capital thing.
So.
I did that.
Okay, see, the key word was it's a
The reason
resolution.
to get up in the morning.
Okay, so we're good.
Days off are
Yeah.
usually 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Well,
think
and
Michelle
I
says
was
we're fine
thinking, boy, I
because
didn't
it's-
do this.
Last year
on
was
this
just
board
renewing the
for all
membership,
time.
so it didn't need to be a resolution, it's just the wording resolutions between you and me.
I mean, maybe.
It's not the same.
Right, right.
I mean, maybe like, so
All right.
everyone else works, so you can't, you know, it's like for me, like if I were, that's one of the considerations you don't entirely church yet. But if I were to change, then I would always be free on
Ah, you can talk about
Okay,
that.
Fridays or
Thank you, man.
Oh, it's Fridays.
it's Friday morning
Oh,
and
okay.
executive, you know.
Yeah, that was
meetings
most of
every
the
morning. So.
They went through all
it's- it is.
So,
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
know
pretty
they struggled when I took the presidency.
Not so
and then they
expected
struggled
for
this year. So now they passed a resolution that you can take a year off and then you can go. So now they'll just start cycling the same people through again on the
sure.
executive. And superintendents, it's like superintendents and then board members.
Okay.
So superintendents can. be
Howard,
there.
maybe you should
So
move
it's,
down.
you know.
But they have to take time out of their Friday as well.
Exactly.
Stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let the roll call show that Eric Strandberg and Jim Tomsky are missing tonight. All other board members are here. We'll move into board member committee reports. Howard?
Went to the PEA retirement breakfast and attended graduation.
Same here.
I
Agenda
attended
planning.
wellness, finance, graduation, and the breakfast.
And I attended the graduation and finance before this.
And I attended the C general meeting and one speaker was from the Department of Ed on trauma-informed schools. And then Tom Melcher, which is always interesting, talked about the legislative session. They hadn't had their special session, but you guys have read all of that, so you know how that all ended up. And graduation.
All right, no student council, superintendent.
I want to thank the board. It's just really impressive to me that all 7 board members go to graduation. That isn't, you don't see that everywhere. So it shows your commitment. Thank you. Thank you to all of our staff. I think, and our team, this is by all accounts, a very successful year, and just so thankful to have so many talented people. A few things that I'll make mention of is I've talked a little bit about this idea on the prowl, which is just getting out to connect and do some outreach on behalf of the district. And I've been out now for a couple of days. I didn't get out as much as today as I did yesterday, but I'm asked about 20 places that I visited, and it's been received very well. I think that it's been very positive, interesting, I get into places I haven't been before, and I'm just kind of walk in cold, and you just never know how that's going to go. But generally, I try and craft a conversation around just introducing, building relationships, open lines of communication, those kinds of things. Open up the opportunity for them to share some of their thoughts about our district, what they are really proud of, that they think that we really need to maintain and continue to do. Offer the opportunity for suggestions for improvement, and then always end with asking for possible partnerships. And I try and phrase it in ways of how can we serve you versus it's always, us asking them what they can do for us. It's more of what can we do for you in that capacity. And I'm leaving everybody with a little poster, if you will, for Take the Tiger Pledge. And I talked to them a little bit about own your own stripes, strengths, and needs, and a little decal in my card. And I'm trying to get a card from each of them too. And hopefully at the end of the summer, I'll be able to spread out hundreds of cards. And I just think it's a good thing. I'm happy to do it. It's going to be challenging to get everywhere. It takes a while, but that's been good. We had a very productive student learning. If you remember how we're trying to reorganize our district in terms of how we're structured in a real participatory leadership model with district leadership teams. And then also sites will have leadership teams that mirror the district leadership team. And we've really organized those into student learning, which is just everything about academics, teaching and learning. We have a leadership team on climate and culture, and then one on MTSS. But our student learning team met today. We have a group of 24. So we actually have 2 department leads per content area. We have a pre-K 5 EL English language arts and a 6-12 English language arts. And we have that for math, social studies, science, every content area. So it's a group of teachers and admin that really capture what the district is. They represent constituents too. So if you're a K-5 English language arts person, you represent all of the English language arts teachers in K-5, right? And you're communicating with them, you're getting their input, and then that's being heard at that table. And then we started to craft 3 drafted goals that we will bring to you before the end of the summer. But a lot of it has to do with trying to decrease the variability of the student experience between classroom to classroom. Trying to eliminate that opportunity for the educational lottery, where depending on what teacher you get this. If you get this teacher, you get this experience. If you get this teacher, you get a completely different experience, in the grade level. So we're talking a lot about that and trying to get our curriculum planning more organized and put together. So I'm excited on where that might go. So I could talk all night. I think that would not be in our best interest. So I'll stop my comments. Thank you.
All right, motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Howard, seconded by Deb. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any. Motion passes. Discuss and act on previous board meeting minutes. The 5/21, 5/7 meeting minutes are there. The 5/7/19 closed meeting minutes, I'm going to have to pull that because the names are wrong on it. Is that it says Chair Deb Allman, Clerk Eric Minks on the official minutes.
Just clarify the motion to correct.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to clarify, to approve the meeting minutes with the clarification.
I move to approve the minutes with the clarification of the names and titles to be correct and updated, or however you want it said.
That's great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made by Howard, seconded by Deb. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda. The motion to approve the consent agenda.
So
Motion was made by Chad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sue. Any discussion?
Just a question on D, the resolution. Michelle, do we need to change that just to say renewal instead of resolution?
Whatever the board would like. We do renew that every year.
Yeah, but a renewal, basically a renewal, but resolution always infers money in a voice vote. Am I wrong on that?
Well, it's read as a resolution, but, I mean, it doesn't involve anything but renewal.
Just-
Mhm.
How about
The state high school league document calls it a resolution, and that's why
It
we
does.
have it, I have it,
It
it
does.
says 2019-20 resolution for membership. So that's why we called it a resolution, because that's what it is.
How about renewal of the resolution?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Just change it to renewal.
All right. Here, any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We move into action items on the budgets. We've gone over these and we've gone over these and gone over these, so. Letter A, restricted budget. Is there a motion to accept the restricted budgets as proposed? And that includes staff, capital, and long-term facility.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Deb, second by Howard. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Letter B, assigned budgets. Is there a motion to accept the assigned budget as proposed, including ATPS, QComp, program initiatives, technology, and building improved?
So moved.
Motion was made by Chad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sue. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Letter C, 2018-19 original budget. Is there a motion to accept the 18-19 original budget as proposed, including original budget summary, general fund budget, and budget document explanation?
So move. Go.
Motion was made by Howard, seconded by
I'll second.
Deb. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Were these supposed to be individual roll call
Oh, you
votes?
should have done roll call. Sorry.
Just thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
How about just doing overall motion?
Also to pass them in.
well, motion was made and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we'll go back down the row, starting with Howard regarding letter A, B, C, or roll call vote.
And the,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
pool filter.
Okay, and D, fuel
Kind
filter.
of a separate thing.
Yeah, we didn't do that yet.
Yeah, that's separate. So
We
just
didn't do D yet.
A, B, and
Just
C.
Okay.
So do you want a motion to accept A, B, and C? So, okay, so I move that we accept the restricted budgets, assigned budgets, and original budgets as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Howard, seconded by Sue, and we'll go by roll call vote. Howard?
Yes.
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 Sorry about that.
No.
Pool filter room scope. There's pool filter room changes listed there.
Would you like me to walk through that?
Yeah.
So the pool filter room originally was part of the restoration plan in our budget scope. When the contractors were walking through, they determined that there were some challenges with pool filter rooms. So this recommendation was to move the pool filter room out of the original bid proposal and walk through what really needed to happen in the pool filter room so that it got done correctly the first time. Well, that was going to be a change order onto Brennan Construction Contracting that we currently have with them for HVAC. After reviewing that and their first numbers regarding the change order, after Wold redrew the design of that room to work with the new equipment coming in, is that it was way above our budget parameters. So we backed up, relooked at that design and scaled that scope back. But then Brennan told us, we really don't want to take on this work. So we are just fine with you going ahead and contracting directly with our subs. So that'll be like your electrical contractor, a plumbing contractor, fire suppression system contractor, and then somebody to do the steel work. So we are now to the point, in order to finish this project, that we would quote out the new design into each of these different areas. Bid law is $175,000. The most expensive part will be the steel, and they're estimating that at $100,000. All of this is still within the budget, the original budget that was developed for the entire pool project. So we just didn't want the board to be surprised that this didn't work out quite the way we thought it was going to in the first place. But we want it to be a very usable room, but a cost-effective design. So we did have to step back a couple times and relook at how that was going to happen. So it's very challenging in the pool world, evidently. Out of my wheelhouse, but they assure me that the subcontractors will step up and quote the project, and we should be able to move forward and be done with the pool in the middle of July, as I believe our end date is scheduled. So I don't need budget authority for this because we already have it. Even though we do have this under action, I apologize. It should have been part of the work session piece.
That's what I was just gonna ask, you,
Okay.
what do we have to make a decision on?
We don't.
Mhm.
I apologize, it's in the wrong part.
Okay.
I was watching her put it on there and I didn't catch that it didn't go under work session, so I apologize. So that was for your information. Any questions, concerns? I will say this, ICS is really working hard on our behalf to make sure that we get the product that we intend to have for our projects.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Grad rate update.
Thankful to have Aaron Dorman here to give us an update on our special ed grad rate. We had created a plan and submitted it to the state regarding that. And she's here to give us an update on our progress.
Did this get attached to board book?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep, we have it.
Projecting, all right. So at the beginning, the first few slides are just some background information for you. This all stems from the Every Student Succeeds Act. And in Minnesota, the World's Best Workforce Plan is our way of demonstrating our progress towards fulfilling the federal requirements. And so first slide is just giving you some very brief background on the Every Student Succeeds Act. Second slide is sort of the priorities or the 5 goals of the World's Best Workforce Plan. One of those being that all students are expected and will graduate from high school. That starting assumption is that every student deserves the best possible education regardless of difference and or identifier. So simply being eligible for special education services does not mean we would lessen our expectation that a student receive a diploma. It may impact the time it takes them to earn their diploma. And under federal law, we are obligated for those students that need it to serve them through their 21st birthday or the school year in which they turn 21. So it isn't assumed that every student with a disability or 100% of a group of students in any given school year would graduate on time. There would always be a small number of students that should move on So when they are monitoring our progress under the World's Best Workforce Plan, they look at the key indicators that I've included here. Graduation rates is one of them, and the only way they include a group of students or report on a group of students for a district is if there's at least 20 students within that cell, and that's to maintain the data privacy of the group of students you're reporting on. In small districts, that can become a huge issue for them. Their cell sizes are much smaller. As far as student groups being monitored, there's two different systems here. One is ethnic status and then program. So we report on not only the 7 ethnic groups that are included, one of them being 2 or more races, but we also report on our students who are English learners, our students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch, and our students who are eligible for special education services. Starting with the class of 2017, they changed the way that the grad rate calculation is presented, the formula that they use. And you'll notice in the data that is further down the slide, I see a decline that is at a similar timeline as to when the formula changed. I'm not suggesting that the formula is the reason for our decline in any way, but we do need to keep in mind that information reported from 2015 is not measured in the same way as information. They do collect data on students who are graduating after 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and 7 years, knowing that some students take longer. We do know that if a student drops out during the year, if they enroll elsewhere and are not there for at least half a year before possibly dropping out again, they get sent, their data or their count gets sent back to their original school district. So a Princeton student drops out of Princeton, enrolls in Malacca, is only there for 2 months and drops out again. They come back to Princeton in the final list of did you graduate or not graduate. We also know that if a student was in special ed in 9th grade and then was dismissed from special ed and then did not graduate on time, they're reported as a special ed student in their overall graduation status. Same for free and reduced lunch. So there are certain rules or things that we need to pay attention to and follow. We also, at the end, when we're looking at our data, there are students that haven't been with us for quite some time, but for whatever reason didn't finish. They come back to our master list. If a student drops out and or elects to pursue a GED instead of a high school diploma, they're considered a dropout. They're not considered a graduate in the overall list, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And
But
that counts against us then.
that counts against us.
Oh.
So for example, in the current class of 2019, because the GED program is in the building in which my office is located, I know that there were 2 students that I served that opted to go towards their GED, successfully completed it, but will be counted as a dropout.
Oh, that stinks.
Oh.
But that's part of federal regs. That has nothing to do with Minnesota. And I think they're trying to equalize across the nation. What does it mean to be a graduate? That's, I've asked the same question, and it's also a different funding pathway. And regardless, they count as dropouts, not as graduates.
Well, wasn't that influenced, because wasn't it Texas that they transfer within a district between schools and whatever and just lose the kid, but they say they have the great graduation rates?
Well, and there are many districts that, the reason for the 6-month or where did you spend the majority of your high school career, that's where you record it, is in some school districts, they do push students to ALCs that may not be part of their school district as a means of, we know you won't graduate on time, so we're going to encourage you to enroll here. Now your data is recorded on that school district, not on ours. In our district, whether they're at the ALC or at the high school, doesn't matter, we're reported as Princeton. But that is part of the reason for the rule as it is written, is you have to own where that student has spent the majority.
So Aaron, given that our ALC is 3 years old, okay, prior to that, our students were going to
Oakland,
Cambridge.
yeah, which was called Oakland at the time.
So the students that weren't graduating on time for Princeton were
being
would
reported
be
as
reported for Oakland or Cambridge
Cambridge.
schools now. And that's just interesting information as we look at this.
But it is influencing some of our overall. So as they have, since 2017, when they start looking at graduation rates and they look at all of the 3 program groups as well as the 7 ethnic groups, they try to determine, are we meeting our graduation expectations for each of those subsets? So for all of our students as well as the subgroups. They take a 3-year average of that 4-year graduation rate, and if you dipped below 67% in any subcategory, then you were targeted for support. And in the state of Minnesota, it's called comprehensive support or targeted support. For instance, because our graduation rate for students with disabilities has started to dip, we have been identified for comprehensive support. We aren't penalized in any way. They just are looking at overall at the data and saying, something's going on here. We need you to figure it out, which we want to, and we're going to give you help to do it. So because we are listed as needing comprehensive support, we get technical assistance from the Centers of Excellence. We have to submit an improvement plan to the Department of Ed, which we have, and we have to identify evidence-based practices that we're going to use to improve our students' progress and graduation rates. Targeted support is just a lesser level of support. They don't get the extra assistance, and they don't have to write. So we started our work, it would have been a year ago, July, so I'll get to that. We're talking about the requirements. We have to communicate with stakeholders. We needed to conduct a needs assessment. We have to review the resources available to our students and design an improvement. And then the intent of the improvement plan is to talk about how are we going to get to where we want to be. So sort of creating that pathway and that roadmap to say, these are the steps we're going to take to improve. It is not necessarily to close an achievement gap. It's not defined as what are your goals. It's about what strategies are you going to implement to do better than you are. It's to achieve a vision for the entire school and keeping every group of students, regardless of indicator, moving in a positive direction. So this is just the data that was identified at the time, the table where it says PHS identified for comprehensive support. If you look at the bottom, our overall 7-year rate at that time was almost 86% for our students with disabilities. So we have demonstrated that the majority of our students are graduating, they're just taking more than 4 years. The group of students that I'm most concerned about and that we've spent quite a bit of time talking about are the kids who drop out and we don't know why. They just stop coming to school. Typically, they have many Fs on their report card. They have attendance issues. They have a tendency to have a higher level of discipline referrals. We pulled a group of stakeholders together, which included general ed teachers, special ed teachers, guidance counselors, administrators, and we literally took graduating classes or the enrollment classes from 3 school years and went student by student for those that did not graduate and started having conversations about why. Why? What are we doing or not doing that is preventing students from graduating? And of those that left for unknown reasons, quite often it was attendance, discipline referrals, F data that showed they weren't successful. And for the most part, we could talk about were there chemical health issues for that student? Did they, though they may have come from a family who wanted to support them, did the family have the means to support them? Not just monetarily, but just capacity. There was typically also some underlying financial issues, homelessness, that just prevented them from regular school. So for me, it's not about the fact that a child has a disability, it's that something else is going on that prevented us from targeting the help they needed. The other thing is, this isn't just a high school issue. As we started designing our plan, this is about what can we be doing throughout their educational career to help high school to be more successful. This isn't just about ninth grade and older. Okay? On the slide that says four-year trends for students, you can see that our percentage of students graduating is dropping compared to the state. We've been above the state every year up until this point, and then the dip happened. So we need to figure it out. You can see that through 2018, we haven't pulled this current year's data, but our MCA scores for students with disabilities in both reading and math is above the state average for students with disabilities. So we are achieving academically at a higher rate than statewide data, which is a good thing, but it isn't the only thing. So far, what we have done is, since last July, we've participated in state and regional level training activities. We've established our school leadership team. We presented information to stakeholders. This would be my second time here, through high school newsletter, through Ben's coffee and conversation. There was an opportunity for discussion there. We've done a needs assessment with staff from both the middle school and the high school to identify what we feel are our hypotheses as to why students are not graduating on time, which then turned into developing strategies for our improvement plan. And that was submitted to the Department of Ed on March 1st. And so beginning this month is when we start doing our work on our strategies. The three strategies, we've picked three. One is, let's just make sure our MARS data is correct. We have lots of people contributing to data being entered in our MARS system. And because of the different codes that are used and reporting windows, we have identified errors. And so we need our data to be clean. And why cause problems for ourselves? Let's just make sure it's right. And ultimately that can lead to some funding discrepancy. I mean, MARS is used for so many things. We just need to make sure it's correct. And to me, that's a quick win for our district if we know it's accurate. Second strategy is for us to create a more systematic decision-making process for how do we decide what services our students with disabilities need, what frequency of service, what intensity of service, what should be the duration of that service. And if they're not making gains at the rate we need them to, what are we going to do next? You would think that would be a simple discussion if it doesn't exist out there. Because if there was somebody who could say, this is how you do it here in Dorman, we would be doing it right. It's a slippery slope because if anything appears to be canned, then it isn't specially designed for each individual student with disability. But there has to be a roadmap we can use that allows us to make sound decisions. We need to do that, and we need to implement it as early childhood so that the kids are as close to grade level as possible once they get to high school. And then lastly, we have co-taught courses both in reading and math at the middle school and at the high school. They are only worth the time being put in by 2 licensed professionals if they're done with fidelity. And so if you're gonna pay 2 staff to be in a room with 30 kids, you need to do it correctly. You need to know that the special ed staff are working with the kids before the co-taught class to introduce the concepts that they're going to get in the co-taught class. You need to follow up with them after, and you still need to teach them the skills they need to learn that are specific. So we have math and reading at the middle school. We have ELA classes at the high school. We just need to do a better job of implementation. We do know from our previous MCA data that the students who are in co-taught are doing better on the MCA tests. They're getting exposed to more rigorous vocabulary. They're being challenged by their peers, both behaviorally and academically, to do more. So we have evidence that co-taught is working, but we need to do it better in order to maximize the time spent. So to me, that's also an opportunity for a quick win because we're already investing in evidence practice. Any questions for me?
I had a question on that strategy too. Is there anything that how can you get, because it sounds like it'd be just documentation is what you need, right? It's a documented process.
Part of it's documentation, part of it is, so if you've identified that a student needs this, what is that strategy you would pick? How
Right,
do you know
right.
that this is the right tool to use? How do you know that this is the right group size to instruct in? Do we teach that student every day? Do we teach them twice a week?
Right.
How do I support the special ed staff who are making those decisions and the families who are making those decisions to have the training they need to do it at the table? Because this is an IEP team decision. The parents need to be empowered to understand what we're asking. And that's a sub-initiative of what we're doing that isn't even part of this plan, is how do we help parents to understand day one when we tell them your child has a disability, what that means and what their role is and how they can support their child. And we aren't, this is a team effort. We have to practice at home. That means that child needs to work even harder than the kid sitting next to them.
Right.
And that the 7 hours of school is not going to be enough. So how do we support the parent or guardian as well as the child and the classroom teacher?
Right.
It's going to be a big process.
Right.
This
And a
plan is
cost
a 3-year
associated with it, right?
Yep.
I imagine.
This is a 3-year plan. Year one is just let's do some really solid investigating,
Yeah.
figure out what it is we need to do different, and then other than the Mars piece, that we should be able to fix that and just go.
Right,
There is
right.
a whole lot of investigating that needs to happen. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, we'll move on to number 10, additions to the agenda. There are no additions. Future meetings are listed there. I will not be at policy on June 18th. And motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
And we only have that one meeting.
Thanks, Aaron.
Too, right?
Yeah, when we only have one meeting in July, it's
July 16th.
so I won't see.